Many wonder how Switzerland, a small landlocked country in the middle of Europe, rose with such great economic prowess over the past centuries. Certain economic policies and institutions were crucial growth factors. The free trade policy of the export-oriented small open economy led this view to increasing benefits in the globalization process of the late 19th century. The Swiss strategy in the emerging world market, where they found themselves face to face with keen English competition, was to avoid direct confrontation and to resort to the production of various specialties or high quality goods, which leads into a conglomeration of factors that give Switzerland its national rank as a leading, affluent country. After World War II, most of Europe's industries were destroyed, except for Switzerland's factories, which gave them a head start for the future. Switzerland produces high quality and high tech goods, have highly skilled workers, and a highly motivated workforce, low taxes, and little regulations. Other countries and investors put their money into Swiss bank accounts due to the safety they bring. Highly dependent on foreign trade, and nearly 90% of their GDP is generated by other industries. And Switzerland is also the headquarters of the World Trade Organization and home to Nestle, a Swiss company which is also the largest food and beverage company in the world.
I'd like to pose one question to the House. Why is Switzerland doing so well? You'd have thought that a country particularly exposed to the financial sector would have suffered unusually during the recent banking crisis, but the Helvetic Confederation in 2009 had a GDP per head 214% of that of the EU. Its people are twice as rich as the citizens of the member state. Now, in part, of course, that reflects the deal that the Swiss have struck with Brussels. They're in the free market, they're covered by the free movement of goods and services and so on, but they're outside the common agricultural policy, outside the common fisheries policy, they control their own borders, they settle their own human rights issues, they pay only a token contribution to the budget, and they are free to sign accords with third countries in commercial areas. What a great model for Britain! If 7 million Swiss, relying on bilateral free trade agreements, can give their people the highest standard of living on the continent, how much more so could we? A nation
As Daniel Hannan, member of the British Parliament, noted, Switzerland benefits greatly from its relationship with the European Union. Switzerland is not a member of the EU, so it does not use the euro. However, over 100 bilateral agreements currently exist between the two. In this way, Switzerland is able to get many of the benefits of the EU, like having trade and investment partners, without being economically and politically constrained.
The streets of Zurich are a bit more crowded than they once were. The population of Switzerland is increasing by 80,000 a year. That's too many, say the supporters of this initiative. They think Switzerland is drowning in foreigners.
If Switzerland takes in ever more people, then prices will rise and the quality of life will fall.
We have to pay and pay. Switzerland is too small. Enough is enough.
As of February 9th this year, Switzerland voted by a very narrow margin to reintroduce immigration quotas for citizens of the European Union, even though this goes against the agreement of free movement of people between the EU and Switzerland. The supporters of quotas believe the influx of immigrants has put upward pressure on housing, health, education, and transportation costs, while simultaneously driving salaries down. However, many Swiss economists do not think this is a good idea, because it limits access to human capital and strains the existing relationship with the European Union.
Trade openness defines a country's ability and level to partake in trade with other countries or economies. In this case, more open economies usually have greater market opportunities, but also face competition from businesses from other nations. Switzerland's trade openness was first graded in 1996 with the Index of Economic Freedom. Back then, their score was a 78 out of 100, indicating a mostly free nation. Now, Switzerland has boosted their trade openness to a score of 90, making them achieve the scale and category of a completely free nation. On the Index of Overall Economic Freedom, Switzerland has been gradually increasing their score. In 2014, they achieved a score of 81.6, ranking them first out of 43 countries in the European region and fourth in the entire world, blowing away the world average of 59.5. The graph comparing the economic freedoms of Switzerland, Japan, and the US clearly show Switzerland maintaining a higher score. Now, Switzerland maintains a high economic freedom score through a good balanced government. First off, as seen in one of the pictures under Rule of Law, freedom of corruption has a score of 88.1. Because the judicial system is generally free of corruption and is independent, this provides strong protection of property rights. Switzerland's regulatory efficiency sector also heavily facilitates entrepreneurial activity, allowing lots of business formation. the government takes a very hands-off approach for small businesses, which enables them to grow individually. In the open market sector, Switzerland has a 0% average tariff rate, and foreign investment is not screened. Switzerland also has a governmental policy on treating foreign and domestic investors equally, meaning there's a very little protectionism of domestic industries. With all of this combined, Switzerland's economic openness demonstrates its significance and major role in the world economy.
As a peaceful and affluent country, Switzerland has a modern market economy with low employment, a highly skilled labor force, and a per capita GDP among the highest in the world. Switzerland's economy benefits from a highly developed service sector led by financial services and a manufacturing industry that specializes in advanced technology as well as knowledge-based production. Its economic and political stability, great infrastructure, efficient capital markets, and low corporate tax rates also make Switzerland one of the most competitive economies in the world. As you can see, these numbers prove that Switzerland is indeed a prosperous country with the 37th largest GDP at $646.2 billion US dollars, as well as a GDP per capita at $46,000 US dollars, which is 15th largest worldwide. When it comes to the unemployment and inflation rate, both these numbers are fairly low. Unemployment is at 2.9% and inflation rate is at negative 0.4%. According to the CIA World Factbook, the majority of the working population is involved with the service sectors of the economy. To be specific, around 72.5% of the GDP is attributed to this sector. As for the rest of the GDP, 26.8% comes from the manufacturing industry, while only less than 1% comes from the agricultural industry. As for the exchange rate, unfortunately, the franc's strength has made Swiss exports less competitive and weakened the country's growth outlook. As a result, GDP growth fell below 2% per year during 2011 to 2013. Although we stated that Switzerland's economy revolves around the service industry, one of its major resources is hydropower, which refers to electricity produced by hydroelectric power plants. In 2010, over 50% of electricity production came from hydroelectric sources in Switzerland, according to the World Bank. Clearly, hydropower remains to be Switzerland's most important domestic source of renewable energy. Here are some statistics regarding trade, imports, and exports for Switzerland. Switzerland is closely integrated into the world economy. Its economic structure is characterized by its pronounced outward orientation. Because of this, their success depends on international trade in goods and services, cross-border investment activities, as well as involved in free trade agreements such as the European Free Trade Association. Free trade agreements are international treaties between two parties in order to safeguard free trade. These agreements are designed to improve business links with important partners around the world. They also promote, in particular, the growth, added value, and competitiveness of Switzerland as a business location. Over the years, they have reduced the price of products for Swiss consumers and have increased the range of products available. At the same time, Swiss producers benefit from more advantageous prices from semi-finished goods and raw materials.
As in most other countries, international investments are a key factor for economic growth and prosperity in Switzerland. Swiss-based companies have traditionally exported not just industrial goods and services, but also capital, particularly in the form of direct investment. Foreign direct investment in Switzerland currently stands at CHF 467 billion as of 2008, which corresponds to roughly 242,000 jobs. The inward flow of direct investment comes mostly from the EU, but most of outward stock flows to the United States. Switzerland attracts a great deal of investment because of its favorable tax policies and is a huge source and host of FDI. They were ranked as the fourth largest source of European FDI after the UK. At the same time, Switzerland has successfully positioned itself as a location for capital investment from abroad. This reached an all-time high of 671,551 CHF million in December of 2012.